All right, we're going to look at some notes on slope, and a lot of this should be a review from 8th grade. And so it says the slope is the ratio of the vertical change, which is your rise, to the horizontal change, which is your run, and it determines your slope. And slope can be written multiple different ways. So a lot of times on a graph we say rise over run, but it's also your vertical change, which is your up and down rise, excuse me, to your horizontal change, which is your run. So if you're not sure what these words mean, vertical, up and down, horizontal, side to side. Then when we look at a table, we say change in y over change in x. And so there are 4 types of slope. We say a positive slope increases from left to right. We always talk about slope like we're reading a book. We read a book from left to right. So from left to right, it's going up. And then if it's a negative slope, then from left to right, it's decreasing. And if it's a zero slope, it's a flat line. It's not going up or down. And then if it's undefined, it's vertical. And we're going to watch a video that will help you remember those a little bit better. And we're going to talk about slope-intercept form, which you should also be familiar with. Y equals mx plus b. The m is your slope. The b is your y-intercept. And I like to talk about slope as a fraction because it's a rise and a run. And so slope is always in front of m, or in front of x, sorry, slope is in front of x. So here my slope is 2. If I were to write that as a fraction, I would say 2 over 1 because I would rise 2, run 1, up 2 over 1. And then my y-intercept, my b, is 3. But I like to write ordered pairs because it's a point. On the graph, a y-intercept is a point. So like this graph here, that's the y-intercept. It's a point on the graph. So we need to write it as an ordered pair. And then letter B, y equals 3/4 x minus 7. My slope is 3/4. My y-intercept, we have to include that negative. So it's 0, negative 7. Letter C, my y-intercept, or my slope, is what's in front of x, and it's an invisible 1. My y-intercept is 0, 5. Letter D, there is nothing, right? Y equals 0x minus 8. If I had a 0x, then that would go away. And so that's why it just says y equals negative 8. So my slope here is 0. My y-intercept is 0, negative 8. Letter E, y equals negative x, which is really like saying y equals negative 1x, which is my slope, negative 1. If I wrote that as a fraction, I'd be going down 1, right 1. And my y-intercept is 0, 0. There's nothing being added. And then the very last one says x equals 6, which is a special case. Here, my slope is undefined. That's your vertical line. And it doesn't have a y-intercept. Okay, we are going to calculate slope by looking at a graph. So when we talk about slope from a graph, we need 2 points. And it doesn't matter what 2 points you pick. You just need to pick them. So here's a point and here's a point, right? That's what I'm going to look at. And this particular graph is decreasing. It's a negative slope. So that means I'm not rising, I'm falling and running, and I always read from left to right. So my farthest point left, and I read from left to right, I go fall 2, run 1, fall 2, run 1. And if I'm falling, that means I'm negative. So negative 2 over 1, which is just negative 2. And then we're going to find the y-intercept, which is where it crosses the y-axis. That's that point there. And if I count it, it's 1, 2, 3. So this is 0, 3. And then I'm going to write my equation. Y equals negative 2x plus 3. All right, we're going to practice a few more of these, and then the bottom part is for later. We're going to come back and I'm going to show you how to check it on the calculator. So on the back, we have some graphs here. And the first thing you should say, oh, this is a positive slope. And so I need to pick 2 points. And I like to pick the y-intercept if possible. That is 1, 2, 3. So my y-intercept is 0, 3. And then I'm going to pick another point. Here's another good point. And if I count my slope, remember slope is rise over run, and so this is positive. I am going to rise 1, run 1, 2, 3, 4. So rise over run. I'm rising 1, running 4. So that's my slope, 1/4. And if I write my equation, it's y equals 1/4 x plus 3. All right, the next one. I should instantly say this is a negative slope. And I'm going down from left to right. And so I'm first going to find my y-intercept, which is right here, crosses the y-axis at -1. So my y-intercept, or my b value, is 0, -1. And then I need to pick another point. So here's another point. We're looking for points on the corner. And I'm going to count. This time I'm falling, and then I'm going to run. I always do what's on top first. So I'm going to fall 1, 2, 3, run 1. Fall 3, which means -3, run 1, which is just -3. So my equation here is y equals -3x minus 1. Okay, the next one. This is a 0 slope. Right? It's a flat line. This is 0 fun. It's a 0 slope. And so my y-intercept is 2, or 0, 2. And my equation is y equals, if I say 0x plus 2, you'll never see it like that because 0 times x is 0. So y equals a positive 2. That's how you will see it written. And then this last one is undefined. So the slope is undefined. The y-intercept does not exist, right? This line never crosses the y-axis. And so my equation is not a y equals equation, it's an x equals, and it's x equals wherever it crosses, which is 3. Okay, so a couple things. One is I'm going to go to a graph page and I'm going to show you that you could just type this in to make sure that you have the right equation. So I'm going to go to my calculator, and if I go a little bit too fast, let me know. So I'm on a calculator page, or I'm on the calculator. I'm going to go to a graph page. And if I just type in my equation, 1/4 x plus 3, a couple things, we can just look and see if it matches. Okay? So that's one way to kind of check your answer on the calculator. And we'll specifically talk about those 0 and undefined ones in a little bit. But now I want to go back to the front of your notes, okay, this part here. And basically we're going to, I'm going to show you how you can use your calculator to just get the slope or even get the equation. But you do have to know how to plot points. So we're going to use the points that were on this table. So I'm going to use 1, 1, which is one of the first points I used. And then 2, -1. So whenever I'm typing things into the calculator, that's where I got these numbers, okay? So on a calculator, we're going to turn on, we're going to pick a new document. We're not saving anything, but we are going to pick number 4, which says list and spreadsheet. So everybody on new document number 4. And then it says to label the variable and type your points. So when we label our variable, we scroll all the way up to A when we put X. We scroll back down. And we go over to B and put our Y. We don't write anything in the equal sign box, okay? If you type something there, it's going to fill in your whole table, and you don't want that because you only have 2 points. So your 2 points are 1, 1, and you write them next to each other like an ordered pair, X and then Y. And then we put the other point, 2, -1. And now that I have both of my points typed in, I'm going to press Menu, number 4 for Statistics, number 1 for Stat Calculations, and then number 3. And if you don't remember which number to push when you get to this screen, just remember Y equals MX plus B, which is number 3. And then it's going to ask you to type in your variable. So what did you call the x's? Well, you called them x, right? If that's how you labeled it. And then scroll down, and what did you call the y's? Well, hopefully you called them y. And then use your little keypad and come over here and press OK. What happens is it tells you that your slope is -2 and your y-intercept is +3. Which is what we found whenever we did it by hand. When we counted down to right 1, that was -2. When we found our y-intercept, that started at 0, 3. Okay, so right here is what you're looking at. M is -2, B is +3. Well, that matches what we already wrote. So the calculator can give you the answer, but you have to find 2 points on that line.